All right, let's dive into LGBTQ plus dating culture. We've got this podcast episode thing packed with like firsthand accounts and expert opinions, and we're going to unpack it all for you.
Sounds good.
Just looking at this stuff, I was kind of surprised to learn that dating apps aren't just about romance in this world. They're like a lifeline to this whole community. And the way like identity labels factor into dating, that's super interesting too. I think this deep dive is going to be pretty eye-opening. Luckily, I've got my expert co-pilot here to help us connect the dots and make sense of it all. So what really stood out to you in this material?
I think what's fascinating is how LGBTQ plus dating is this blend of community and identity and like the constant search for acceptance.
Right.
The episode even quotes a sociologist who says LGBTQ plus dating culture is often shaped by a mix of community, identity, and the search for acceptance.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like a whole other layer on top of, what we might traditionally think of as dating.
Exactly. And it makes you realize how unique this whole landscape is. I mean, finding a partner is just one piece of the puzzle here.
Yeah, it's almost like the dating process itself
Hmm.
is part of figuring out who you are and where you belong. Especially since, as our source points out, online dating has become so much more than just swiping left or right.
Absolutely. It's like the primary way to meet for many in the LGBTQ plus community. But it goes way beyond just finding romance. Apps like Tinder, Grindr, and Bumble, they're serving this dual purpose of finding potential partners and connecting with the community.
With people who share similar experiences.
Yeah. They even shared a soundbite from a user who said, "I love that I can find people who share similar experiences and identities. It's a great way to connect, but safety is always my top priority. It's clear that feeling safe and respected online, that's a huge deal for this community." Yeah, and that makes perfect sense when you think about the broader societal context. Sadly, like discrimination and stigma still exist. So having these platforms where you can be open about your identity and feel secure becomes even more crucial. It's not just about finding love, it's about finding a space where you can truly be yourself without fear of judgment.
Right, exactly. Imagine not being able to hold hands with your partner in public or worrying about being judged for who you are. It's heartbreaking, and it makes it clear why these digital spaces are so vital.
It really does. It highlights how important it is for these platforms to actively prioritize user safety and inclusivity, especially when you consider that some individuals within the LGBTQ plus community, might be more vulnerable due to their identity or personal circumstances.
For sure, it's like these apps can be this virtual haven where people can let their guard down and connect with others who get it, the unique joys and challenges of being LGBTQ plus.
Precisely. And then on top of that, you have that whole other layer of complexity, navigating identity and labels. The episode talks about how terms like bisexual, pansexual, and genderqueer play a big role in LGBTQ plus dating.
Yeah, it's really interesting to consider how someone's identity can shape their dating experiences so much.
Right, and the source material even quotes a psychologist who said, navigating identity in dating can be liberating, but it can also lead to confusion. It's important to create spaces where individuals can express themselves without judgment.
It makes you realize that while embracing your identity can be incredibly freeing, it can also be a period of exploration and questioning, which can add another layer of complexity to dating, especially when you consider that terms like genderqueer, those might not be familiar to everyone.
That's true. Even within the LGBTQ plus community, there's a diversity of experiences and understandings. And as our understanding of gender and sexuality continues to evolve, the need for open communication and understanding in dating becomes even more important.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, listener, I'm curious, how do you think these labels and the process of figuring out your identity can shape dating experiences, both in positive ways and potentially in challenging ways?
It's a great question. It's a question worth reflecting on for sure, especially as we all try to navigate this increasingly complex world of relationships and identities. But unfortunately, even with all the progress we've made, we have to acknowledge that discrimination and stigma still exist and can impact even the most personal aspects of life, including dating.
Yeah, that's right. It's a reminder that societal prejudices can have a real impact, even within a community that celebrates love and acceptance. And the source material even delves into this concept of internalized homophobia, which honestly I hadn't given much thought to before.
Yeah, it's a difficult topic. But essentially, it's when individuals internalize the negative societal attitudes towards LGBTQ plus people, leading to self-stigma that can impact their self-esteem and relationships.
It's heartbreaking to think that someone might struggle with accepting themselves because of those external pressures.
Absolutely. It shows how important it is to create supportive environments where individuals feel safe to explore their identities and express themselves authentically. We need spaces where people can unlearn those harmful messages and embrace their true selves.
This reminds me of that powerful quote from the activists they interviewed. They said, it's important to acknowledge the barriers that exist,
Yeah.
but also to celebrate the resilience of the community. Many are working to create more inclusive spaces for dating.
It's a great quote. It really speaks to the strength and determination within the LGBTQ plus community. Despite the challenges, there's this commitment to creating positive change and fostering a more inclusive world. It's inspiring.
It really is. Okay, we've talked about some of the tougher aspects of this landscape, but I want to shift gears a little and focus on the beauty of connection that the source material highlights. Things like pride parades and queer-specific dating events. Those sound like amazing opportunities to meet people
Hmm.
in a fun and supportive setting.
For sure. It's all about fostering that sense of belonging
Yeah.
and shared experience, creating spaces where individuals can connect with others who really understand their journey. That can be so empowering.
Yeah. And beyond just finding a partner, it seems like a lot of LGBTQ plus individuals prioritize authenticity and deep emotional connection in their relationships.
Right. That definitely came through in the soundbite from the couple. Remember how they said our connection was instant? We both value honesty and being ourselves, which has made our relationship strong and fulfilling.
Yeah. It really seems like that focus on being true to yourself and finding someone who accepts you for who you are is at the core of the LGBTQ plus dating experience.
And what's interesting is how this emphasis on authenticity might be different from broader dating trends, where societal pressures and expectations can overshadow genuine connection.
That's a really good point. It's almost like LGBTQ plus dating culture is paving the way in prioritizing genuine connection over those superficial things.
It's a thought-provoking perspective. It makes you wonder how much of that focus on authenticity is shaped by the need to find acceptance and understanding within a society that hasn't always been welcoming.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So, listener, how do you think this emphasis on authenticity shapes the dating landscape, both within and outside of the LGBTQ plus community?
It's a great question to think about, especially as we, delve deeper into this topic. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's just take a second to recap some of the key takeaways. We've covered a lot.
Yeah, let's do that. I love a good recap.
Okay, so first, we explored how dating apps are playing this dual role in the LGBTQ plus community. They're not just for romance. They're for finding your people and feeling a sense of belonging.
Right, exactly. And that's so important considering the challenges of discrimination and the need for safe spaces where individuals can connect without fear of judgment.
For sure. Secondly, we talked about how navigating identity and labels is such a big part of LGBTQ plus dating. It's about self-discovery and finding partners who get you and your experiences.
Yeah.
And even like challenging those societal norms and expectations.
And as societal attitudes continue to evolve, we can only expect even greater fluidity and nuance in how people express their identities. It's exciting.
Yeah, it is. And lastly, we saw how the LGBTQ plus community is creating these spaces that celebrate love, connection, and most importantly, authenticity, all while facing barriers that still exist.
Such a powerful reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the pursuit of love and acceptance.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
it is.
Okay, we've covered so much ground today, from the challenges of LGBTQ plus dating to the resilience and the potential for shaping a more authentic and connected future.
We've talked about tech, identity, labels, and the importance of creating spaces where everyone feels seen and celebrated.
And we want you to keep exploring this on your own. There's a ton of stories, articles, and conversations within the LGBTQ plus community that are worth checking out.
Absolutely. Remember, this is just the start of the conversation. Keep learning and keep your heart open.
Okay, we'll be back in a moment to wrap up our deep dive into LGBTQ plus dating culture. Stay tuned.
It really is inspiring, and it kind of makes you wonder, how might these values and experiences within the LGBTQ plus community be shaping the broader dating landscape? You know what I mean? Like, what do you think, listener? Are we seeing this shift towards more authenticity and genuine connection in dating overall?
That's a great question. And it kind of leads to something that wasn't explicitly covered in this material, but it's definitely food for thought. How might the future of LGBTQ plus dating evolve as societal attitudes continue to change?
That's fascinating to think about. As acceptance grows And LGBTQ plus individuals feel even more comfortable being open about their identities. We could see even more diversity and visibility within the dating scene.
Yeah. I wonder if that might lead to a blurring of the lines between LGBTQ plus dating and mainstream dating.
Yeah.
Could we see a future where like the distinction isn't as prominent?
It's possible. As societal norms shift and inclusivity becomes more the norm, dating apps and platforms could become more inclusive too, catering to a wider spectrum of identities and orientations. It's like those labels we were talking about earlier. Maybe they'll become less about defining strict categories and more about expressing individual nuances.
Like that idea.
Hmm.
And speaking of those labels, I remember feeling a little confused when I first heard terms like pansexual and genderqueer. But the more I learned, the more I realized how important it is to respect how people identify
Hmm.
and to be open to understanding different perspectives. It's an ongoing process for sure.
Absolutely. And as we become more educated about these nuances, it opens up this whole new world of understanding and connection. It's like we're expanding our vocabulary for love and relationships, which can only be a good thing.
Right. And I also wonder if this whole emphasis on authenticity and deep connection might influence broader dating trends too, encouraging more open and honest communication right from the start. Instead of trying to fit into some mold, people can just be themselves and find others who appreciate them for who they are.
That would be a welcome shift. Imagine a dating landscape where vulnerability and genuine connection are celebrated, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity. A world where people can be upfront about their needs and desires, without worrying about being judged.
It sounds like a utopia. But honestly, I think there's a lot that mainstream dating culture could learn from the values and experiences within the LGBTQ plus community. They've been navigating these issues for so long and have a deep understanding of what really matters in relationships.
I agree, this emphasis on self-acceptance and community support. And navigating identity with openness and honesty, those are all valuable lessons that everyone can learn from, no matter who they love or how they identify.
It makes you wonder if by embracing these values, we could create a dating world that's more authentic, more compassionate, and ultimately more fulfilling for everyone.
It's a nice thought. It's definitely a vision worth working towards. At the end of the day, we all crave connection, and we all want to be loved for who we are.
So true. And while we've been focusing on online dating and apps, it's important to remember that real-world spaces and events are also super important for connections within the LGBTQ plus community.
That's true. Dating isn't just online. Places like LGBTQ plus community centers and bars and social gatherings, even book clubs, those can all be great opportunities to meet people.
Right, and events like pride parades and film festivals, or even just like a casual meetup at a coffee shop, those can create those little sparks of connection that sometimes lead to something more.
It's a good reminder that sometimes the most meaningful connections happen when we step away from our screens and engage with our communities in person. It's about those shared experiences, the moments of laughter, those build real connections.
And those moments can happen anywhere, at a pride parade or just talking over coffee. It's about being open to connection and creating those spaces where people feel comfortable being themselves.
Exactly. It's about that sense of belonging and celebrating all the ways that people are different. And as we keep challenging those norms and embrace inclusivity, I think we'll see even more creative and fun ways for people to connect, both online and offline.
I'm excited to see how it all evolves. So listener, we've covered a lot today, from the unique challenges of LGBTQ plus dating to the resilience and the potential for a more authentic and connected future.
We've talked about technology and identity and labels and how important it is to create spaces where everyone feels seen and heard and celebrated.
And as always, we encourage you to keep learning about this stuff on your own. There's so many stories and articles and conversations happening within the LGBTQ plus community.
Yeah, definitely check it out. This is just the beginning. So keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep your heart open.
Okay, we'll be right back to wrap things up. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
It's been a pretty amazing journey, right? Exploring this whole world of LGBTQ plus dating culture.
It really has. You know, before we started this deep dive, I had some ideas about what it would be like. But I've learned so much and gained a whole new perspective.
Yeah, there's so much to it, so much depth and nuance.
Totally. One thing that really hit me is, even with all these challenges, there's this incredible sense of hope in the LGBTQ plus community, this determination to create positive change. It's really inspiring.
It is. It says a lot about human connection and that desire for love and acceptance, no matter what. Like they're saying, we're here, we're queer, and we're not going anywhere.
I love that. It makes me wonder If this focus on authenticity and genuine connection that we've been talking about,
Yeah.
if that spread beyond the LGBTQ plus community, what would that mean for dating in general? Could we create a world where everyone feels empowered to be themselves
Yeah.
and look for relationships based on respect and understanding?
That would be amazing. A world where being vulnerable is a strength, where being different is celebrated, and love is truly unconditional.
It's a vision worth striving for. And I think by learning from the LGBTQ plus community, we can all help create a more authentic and compassionate dating world for everyone.
Totally. We can all challenge those old norms and expectations, encourage open communication, and create spaces where people feel safe to be their true selves.
So listener, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this. This is just a glimpse into a huge and constantly changing world. There's so many more stories and perspectives out there.
Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep your heart open.
We hope this deep dive has made you curious and given you a new appreciation for LGBTQ plus dating culture. Until next time.